Welcome, traveler of time and seeker of silence. Tonight we gently drift away from the chaos of the modern world and step into the quiet, forgotten rhythms of the past. You're about to experience life not as a warrior, not as a noble, but as someone often unseen, someone ordinary, someone essential. In this episode of Boring History for Sleep, we ask, why wouldn't you last a single day in feudal Japan? Not because of battles, but because of blisters. Not because of samurai, but because of silence, of rice, of endless rules. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep the lantern lit and lets you return whenever you seek calm beneath the cherry blossoms of history. Now, close your eyes, let the rice fields sway, let the past whisper, let's begin. Dawn in the village of Edo, the peasant's burden. Welcome, dear listener, to another peaceful journey through the past. A journey into a world not your own, a time long faded into the mists of forgotten seasons and customs dusted with centuries of silence. Tonight, we journey into feudal Japan, a world of strict hierarchy, endless rice fields, rigid customs, unyielding duties, and a rhythm of life bound by the rising and setting sun. Let us begin, not with a samurai's sword, but with something far heavier, a farmer's hoe. Imagine, if you will, the soft pre-dawn murmur of a rural village. The sky is still dark, dotted faintly with stars, and the moon, an old friend, hangs low, pale and uninterested. A rooster crows half-heartedly. You, a simple villager, have already risen, because in feudal Japan, sleep is a luxury and laziness a moral failing, especially if you are of the peasant class, which makes up nearly 90% of society. There is no bed as you know it. You slept on a straw tatami mat. No pillow, just a wooden block for your neck. Your back is sore, your joints are stiff. You have not known a single morning in your life without pain. Your home is made of wood and clay, it's drafty. A single room, shared with your spouse, your children, and perhaps your elderly parents. The hearth has gone cold. The coals whisper faint warmth beneath a soot-blackened pot. There is no coffee, no tea yet. You'll learn that later, if you survive. The first duty of the morning is reverence. You bow to the kamidana, your household shrine, offering a small bowl of rice and a whispered prayer to the kami, the spirits that govern nature and fate. There's no time to linger. The rice must be threshed, the vegetables checked, and the family ox, if you're lucky enough to own one, fed. You step outside. The earth is hard and cold. The wooden gaiter sandals clack softly as you walk, trying not to wake the sleeping neighbor. Family that lives less than 3 meters away. Everyone is poor, everyone is quiet, everyone is working. You have one primary duty: to produce rice. Because in feudal Japan, rice is more than food. It is money, it is tax, it is status, and it is survival. Every grain is owed to your daimyo, the local lord. You do not eat your rice first. You give it away to your overlord, who gives a portion to his overlord, who sends it to the shogun, who perhaps allows the emperor to taste the finest kernels. Though he holds no real power anymore, You work with a tool called a kua, a primitive hoe made of wood and iron, worn by your father, your grandfather, and perhaps someone even older than that. You bend at the waist, thrust the blade into the soil over and over again. It is spring, the planting season. Your feet are caked in mud, and mosquitoes already begin their morning patrol. Time passes slowly. The sun is rising now, burning away the mist in the valley. A bell chimes in the distance, likely from the local temple. You pause not to rest, but to bow again. Always there is bowing. The overseer from the local estate arrives. He carries a bamboo stick and a ledger. He doesn't need to speak. You bow again, deeply this time. He inspects your work. You are nervous because a miscalculation in your rice quota could mean a beating or worse, execution as a lesson to others. You think perhaps how your cousin was sent away last year, press-ganged into forced labor to help build a daimyo's bridge. He never returned. You do not mention him aloud, because in feudal Japan, silence is safer than memory. The children are also awake now. Your eldest son, 9 years old, is already barefoot in the paddies. Your daughter tends to the chickens. There is no school. Education is for samurai, monks, and merchants. Your children will work as you do, and they will die as you do, hopefully in old age, but more likely from disease, starvation, or a simple infection. Breakfast is finally earned, a small bowl of millet, perhaps some pickled radish, and if your family was lucky at the river yesterday, a sliver of dried fish. You chew slowly, with gratitude, because there is no other way. A neighbor passes by, a hunched man with a wooden bucket. You bow. Again, he does not meet your eyes. You do not speak of his missing finger, taken by bandits, or perhaps as punishment for failing to meet his tax. It doesn't matter. No one interferes with punishment. That is the way of things. Your wife is inside weaving cloth. Hemp, not silk. Silk is reserved for the upper classes. Your garments are rough, stained with years of sweat and field work, but you keep them clean, because appearance matters, even among the poor. The village is orderly, even if it is broken. Afternoon comes. The sun is now high, merciless. There is no shade in the fields. Your back burns. You continue anyway. There is no such thing as a sick day. If you fall ill, you pray. If you die, you are burned and buried with no ceremony. The priests come only for those who can afford their blessings. You return home briefly to drink tepid water from a shared cup. Your daughter sings softly. It's a folk song about the fox spirits that live in the hills. You smile for a moment, then return to the field. Evening is a mercy. The sun dips and the wind cools. You finish the day's work, return to your home, and kneel once more before the shrine. You light a bit of incense. The smoke curls upward into the rafters. Dinner is similar to breakfast, only thinner. You share your meal with gratitude. You discuss little. Words are not wasted. You hear drums in the distance, temple monks finishing their chants. You sleep early, because the cycle begins again tomorrow. There is no end to the rice. Samurai justice, when you're the one being judged. You awaken with the same pain in your knees, the same stiffness in your neck, and the same weight behind your eyes. But today feels different. There is a disturbance in the village. You can sense it before you hear it. The way the sparrows hesitate to chirp, the way your wife whispers more quietly than usual, the way your neighbor looks down and shuffles faster than necessary. Something has happened, but no one says it aloud. Because in feudal Japan, words have weight, words carry risk, and words spoken too loudly can drift through paper walls and land in the wrong ears. As you walk toward the field, a small boy passes you barefoot, his eyes wide. His sister pulls him away by the sleeve. You follow his gaze toward the road that curves around the forest, toward the estate of the local daimyo. There, in the shadows of the tall cedar trees, stand two samurai. One wears blue armor, lacquered and flawless, with a family crest painted in white. The other wears none, just a kataginu vest and hakama trousers, but carries a katana longer than your arm. His hair is tied high. His face is unreadable. The villagers don't run, but they disappear, quietly, respectfully. Everyone goes back to work, or pretends to. You too return to the paddies, but you can't help looking over your shoulder, because when samurai arrive, it usually means only one thing. Someone is being judged, and it might be you. You replay your week in your head. Did you forget a tax? Did your son say something disrespectful to the overseer? Did your family shrine neglect an offering? The samurai do not need proof. They are above you. They live in a class known as Shai, the warrior caste. You are Numin, a farmer. Honor is not your shield. Law is not your protection. Their sword is both. By noon, a crowd has gathered in the village square, just far enough to pretend not to be curious. But everyone is watching. Everyone is waiting. Eventually, the village headman, an older man with a gray beard and trembling hands, bows deeply before the samurai. The one in armor does not bow back. Instead, he unrolls a small parchment and reads aloud in a firm voice. Name is spoken. It is your neighbor's, the one with the missing finger. A rustle. Some gasp softly. The man is pulled forward. He does not resist. He bows deeply, fully, forehead to earth. But it is not enough. The charge, failing to meet his rice quota 3 seasons in a row. The punishment, public humiliation, and if the Lord wills it, execution. The man does not speak. Because in feudal Japan, speaking in your defense is not always welcomed. Silence can be a form of obedience. The samurai in blue draws his short sword, a wakizashi. Not his main blade. This is not a battle. This is a sentence. He points it toward the village well. There, your neighbor is bound to a post. Villagers are called forward to watch. You are one of them. You do not wish to be here, but refusal would be seen as disrespect. That too is punishable. The sun is high now, no clouds. The air is still. Sweat beads down your back. The headman announces, the sentence, your neighbor's rice fields will be taken by the estate. His family will be moved to a less fertile region, and he will be scarred as a lesson. A thin blade is drawn across the top of his forehead, not to kill, to mark. It is shallow but symbolic. He does not cry out. The villagers do not react. You are not allowed to show emotion, not for justice, not for cruelty, because a peasant's feelings are irrelevant in the eyes of the code. As the samurai sheath their blades, you bow once more. Even your children bow. They ride away on horseback slowly toward the next village. Perhaps there will be another punishment there. Perhaps not. They are the sword of the daimyo, and the daimyo is the sword of the shogun. You walk home that evening in silence. Your wife says nothing. Your children do not play. That night there is no song. Only the soft wind against the thatched roof. You kneel at your family shrine and offer the last grain of your rice as thanks for surviving another day. You do not pray for justice. You pray for invisibility. Because in feudal Japan, to be noticed is dangerous. Sleep comes slowly, but it comes. You dream of walking down a dirt path. There are no samurai, no overseers, only the wind and the sound of leaves brushing against one another like whispers too old to translate. Living under the daimyo, the heavy price of loyalty. You wake before the sun again. The straw beneath your back creaks as you rise, careful not to disturb the others. Your wife is still asleep, curled beside your youngest. Your older children sleep close to the warm coals of last night's fire. The air smells of ash and old cloth. You do not need to check the horizon to know that it is another clear morning. You dress quietly, sliding into your work robe, tightening the woven sash with one hand while brushing off a curled leaf with the other. Your feet slip into worn sandals, made of straw. One is fraying badly, but there is no time to fix it. Not today. Outside, the cold bites softly at your face. The birds are not yet awake, but you are, because you have a duty, not to yourself, not even to your family, but to your daimyo. He does not know your name. He will never speak it. But everything in your life belongs to him, your labor, your harvest, your loyalty, even your silence. Who is the daimyo? The daimyo is not just a landowner. He is your feudal lord, your war chief, your absolute authority. If you live in a village, the daimyo owns the land you farm. If you live in a valley, he owns the river that waters your rice. If you catch a fish, it is his fish. If you gather firewood, it is his forest. He is not a king. There is a shogun above him, and an emperor even further still. But in your world, the world of wet soil and worn sandals, the daimyo is the sky. When he is calm, life flows gently. When he is angry, storms arrive. The daimyo lives in a castle far away behind moats and wooden gates, surrounded by banners that flap like wings in the wind. You've never seen inside the walls. Most people haven't. His castle is not just a residence, it is a statement. Its layers rise in soft curves. Its watchtowers stare in all directions. Its silence says more than any proclamation. Inside the castle, there are gardens you will never walk through, chambers you will never clean, tea you will never drink. Outside there are soldiers, samurai, who protect the daimyo, but also serve him. They wear two swords. You wear none. Loyalty as a weight life under a daimyo means understanding your place deeply. You are not encouraged to rise. Ambition is dangerous. To serve loyally and quietly, that is honorable. To question, even out of curiosity, is to invite suspicion. Your taxes are collected seasonally. Most of it is in rice, some in labor, occasionally in fabric or tools. There are no negotiations, no appeals, no second chances. The rice you grow belongs to your daimyo first. What remains may feed your family, if you're lucky. In a good year, the harvest is generous. You eat well. In a bad year, the harvest is thin. You still pay the same tax, so you eat less. You've seen families thin out during lean times, not by distance, by hunger. And yet, no one complains openly, because complaints are loud, and loudness is dangerous. The festival of plum blossoms. One spring, a message arrives. The daimyo has ordered a festival. It is to honor the blooming of the yum trees, plum blossoms, symbols of strength and endurance. You are not invited. No one. From the village is, but each family must still send a gift. It is expected, not demanded, but expected. And expectations carry as much weight as swords. Some villagers gather coins and purchase dried fish from the traveling merchant. Others send fine wood carvings or rare herbs. You have only a spoon your daughter carved from an old cypress branch. It is smooth and balanced, and she even etched a tiny flower on the handle. You wrap it in fabric, place it in a lacquered box once used for something else, and give it to the headman, the village official. He bows. He says nothing. He passes it on. Days pass, then weeks. The festival comes and goes. You see the distant glow of lanterns over the hills. You hear the drums, faintly, like echoes through fog. For a night, the daimyo's castle becomes a stage. There are dancers, poets, geisha in silk, samurai in parade, food, music, laughter. You watch from your field, ankle deep in water, and you smile, not with jealousy, but with peace. Because for a moment it feels like the village is part of something grand, even from far away. The cost of celebration, then comes the consequence. A month later, the tax collector returns. He brings new figures. The numbers have risen, not drastically, but enough to notice. When asked why, he explains, the celebration was costly. The people must show continued loyalty. There is no appeal, no letter to write, no protest. You bow, you pay, you sell your daughter's sandals. You mend old clothes again. You eat fewer grains. You do not complain, because complaining is like shouting in the middle of a prayer. It invites only silence in return. Whispered stories of other daimyo at night. The old men tell stories. Stories of mad daimyo who turned valleys into personal lakes, who moved entire villages so their koi pond had the perfect view of the moon, who demanded that farmers grow flowers instead of rice, just for the smell. There's a tale of one daimyo who grew paranoid. He had the entire left side of his castle rebuilt because he feared shadows. Another became obsessed with poetry. He taxed villagers not in rice, but in verses. And yet, these men remained in power, because daimyo rule not by kindness, but by structure, by lineage, by loyalty. Even their failures become part of the structure. Even their indulgences are protected. You can only hope your daimyo is sane, that his needs are predictable, that his eyes never fall directly on you. Bowing. Always bowing. Every interaction in your world involves bowing. When you meet the headman, bow. When a tax official arrives, bow lower. When a samurai passes by, bow lower still and avert your eyes. When you hear the word daimyo, you pause. Even the mention of his name changes the energy around you. Sometimes you bow in your dreams. Your daughter's question that evening, as you patch your sandal again by candlelight, your daughter watches you. She's old enough now to help in the fields. Her hands are calloused, her shoulders are strong. She leans in and asks softly, "Father, what does the daimyo look like?" You pause, because in truth, you don't know. You've only seen him from a distance, a blur on a horse, a shape behind a paper screen, a name on a scroll. He is tall, you say, and silent. She waits for more, but there isn't more. Because the daimyo is not a person to you. He is a presence, a mountain too far to climb, but too big to ignore. Your daughter nods. "Maybe one day I'll see him," she says. You smile gently, sadly, and you blow out the candle. You dream again. That night you dream. You are walking through a forest of bamboo. Each stalk bends slightly toward you. The wind is slow, warm. In the distance you hear drums, but you do not run toward them. Instead, you kneel beside a stream, dip your hands into the cool water and drink, because this is peace. And peace in your world is found not through rising, but through enduring. Women in feudal Japan, silence, duty, and shadows. You are not born with a name that will be remembered. You are born with hands made for weaving, feet made for quiet steps, eyes trained to look downward. You are a woman in feudal Japan. Your world is measured in gestures, the angle of a bow, the height of your gaze, the softness of your voice. Even your silence is watched. Your family does not expect you to seek glory. You will not carry swords. You will not rule a household unless it is in the shadows. Instead, you are taught how to serve, how to endure, how to vanish within walls like mist through the trees. The world outside belongs to men, samurai, monks, tax collectors, but the inner world, the world of boiling water, folded robes, silken thread, and quiet strength, that is yours. The early years. Your childhood is quiet. You rise with your mother before dawn. You fetch water. You wash rice. You help her twist cloths into ropes. You learn to bow deeply. You learn to listen longer than you speak. Your father speaks little to you. He expects you to be like your mother, dependable, invisible, obedient. When guests arrive, you kneel beside the sliding door, your face turned down, hands in your lap. No one sees you. And that is a kind of success. Your education depends on your station. If your family is poor, you learn practical things, how to make miso, how to spin hemp, how to gather herbs from the mountains. You learn how to seal a wound with ash and how to keep a fire alive through the night. If your family is samurai, you learn poetry, brush painting, calligraphy. But even these are not for you. They are tools to reflect the honor of your father's house or attract a husband of equal rank. You learn to read, but not to speak too much. You learn to write, but not to argue. You do not dream of war. You dream of balance, marriage, and movement. You marry young, 12, 13, 14. Your match is arranged, discussed between fathers while you sweep the floor. Your opinion is not asked. It is not needed. You are told his name. You are told his family's standing. You are told the day you will leave your home. And when that day arrives, you bow to your parents. You do not cry. Tears are for children. You are now a wife. Your belongings are wrapped in a bundle. A small mirror, a comb, a few robes. You carry them on your back and walk, sometimes 4 miles, toward a house that is not yet yours. Your new husband may be kind or not. That is not something you control. You do not eat until he has eaten. You do not speak unless he has spoken. You keep his home warm, his clothing folded, his rice hot. When visitors come, you kneel again, face down, listening for the sound of their sandals as they leave. The way of women. You learn the rhythms of this life, how to sense moods without words, how to fold robes perfectly so the seams fall silent, how to cook without measuring, to listen for the sound of boiling water rather than watching it. In some households your life is hard. A husband with a temper, a mother-in-law who watches every move, a courtyard garden you are never allowed to step into. But even in gentler homes, the rules never rest. You do not laugh loudly, you do not eat before the eldest man. You do not express desire or sadness or boredom. To exist is to serve. To serve is to vanish. And yet, you find meaning in the smallest things. The shape of a folded napkin, the way your daughter's hair glows in the sunlight, the warmth of a fire on a winter morning when the snow falls like breath from the sky. You are the keeper of the quiet things, the protector of moments no one else notices. Childbirth and loss. When you become pregnant, you are both honored and afraid. A son brings status, a daughter brings worry. Birth is not safe. There are no doctors, only midwives and prayers. You breathe deeply as the pain rises like a tide. You grip the tatami mat with sweat-drenched hands. You scream, but only once. Then you hold it in. The room is silent, and then a cry. Your child has arrived. If it is a son, your husband smiles. If it is a daughter, your mother-in-law frowns, just slightly. Either way, you love them, deeply, quietly. You nurse them through long winters. You carry them through fields. You tie charms to their robes and whisper songs into their ears when no one is listening. Sometimes a child is lost. To sickness, to hunger, to accidents. You bury them without a name. You weep into your sleeves. And then you rise again, because your life must go on. Samurai women. Not all women are peasants. Some are born to samurai families. They learn the naginta, a long blade attached to a pole. They learn to defend their homes, especially if the men are away at war. But even these women must follow strict codes. They may die with honor before they dishonor their clan. They may commit jigai, a form of ritual suicide, using a dagger to slice the neck. But even this must be done gracefully, cleanly, without blood spilling onto the mat. Samurai women are respected, but not free. They carry responsibility like a kimono of iron. They guard their family's honor with silence and sacrifice. Their courage is real, but it is never celebrated, because in feudal Japan, a woman's strength is shown not in voice or sword, but in endurance, old age, and legacy. If you live long enough, your children marry. They call you Oka-sama or Obasan. You no longer clean the floor yourself. You sit near the window, weaving straw into slippers, sipping broth. And you watch the seasons. The cherry blossoms fall, the rice grows green, the snow returns, then melts. You think of the days when your hands were fast and your body strong, when you carried your children on your back, when your husband was young and fierce. You do not speak of regrets, because regrets are like drafts. They sneak in when the doors are left open. You offer advice only when asked. You laugh only when the young cannot see, and when you pass, you are wrapped in a white robe. A coin is placed in your mouth for the ferryman. Your body is burned, your ashes buried. No statue is made, no poem is sung. But your daughters remember, and your granddaughters bow to your spirit when the wind whistles through the bamboo. You live on, samurai, without mercy, the cold discipline of honor. The air is thick with incense and silence. You were born in a house where walls listen and shadows stretch like blades, where every breath is measured, every movement controlled, where the sound of your sandals against the wooden floors is the loudest thing you are allowed to leave behind. You are samurai, or you are expected to become one, not for yourself, not for pride, not even for family, but for a duty so deeply embedded into your bones that to question it would feel like betrayal. You would not last a day in the skin of a samurai, not because of pain or violence, but because of the sheer weight of stillness, of obedience, of never, ever allowing yourself to be yourself. Let us begin. Born into the code, you were not asked to be born into a warrior family. You simply arrive, red-faced and howling, and are wrapped in white cotton and silence. Your mother says little. Your father does not hold you. A servant carries you through the halls of a clean wooden house built in symmetry. The gardens outside are trimmed perfectly, the rocks raked into spirals. Nothing is out of place, not even you. You are the third son of a middle-ranking samurai. Your life is already written. There will be no freedom. There will be no rebellion. There will be only structure. By the time you can stand, a wooden practice sword is placed in your hand. You are told to bow. You do not yet know why. Your life will be an unending cycle of bowing. To elders, to ancestors, to lords, to gods, and finally, to death. Childhood, shaped by iron and ceremony. At age 5, you rise before the sun. The house is quiet, except for the sweep of a broom and the distant sound of water dripping into a bamboo fountain. You dress in plain cotton. Your hair is tied. Back. Your back must remain straight even while eating rice gruel and salted fish. You kneel to greet your father. He does not smile. He inspects your posture and your cleanliness. Then training begins. Hours of kata, repetitive sword movements. Your small body straining to hold the wooden blade steady. If you falter, your sensei corrects you. Not with harsh words, but with silence and a second demonstration, slower and more precise. You do not play. Play is for peasants. You do not run freely through the forest. You do not climb trees or chase insects. Instead, you trace characters with ink and brush, sit in stillness, and memorize the codes of conduct for men you will never meet. Sometimes your fingers cramp from calligraphy. Sometimes your knees ache from kneeling. You do not speak of this. Pain is irrelevant. A samurai is born with the knowledge that his comfort means nothing. Bushido, the invisible master. You are taught the Bushido, though you do not call it that. Not. Yet it is not written in one book. It is not a creed you recite. It is whispered between gestures. It is in the way your father moves when he draws his sword without sound. In the way your mother bows lower than necessary when a messenger visits. The code becomes you. Rectitude. To do what is right, even when it cuts. Courage. Not the absence of fear, but standing in fire regardless. Benevolence. Compassion. But only when permitted. Respect. The act of knowing your place and never stepping outside it. Honesty. To speak only what would not bring shame. Honor. The invisible weight on your back, every second of your life. Loyalty, to die when told, without hesitation. You are not given these words as lessons. You are given them as expectations, and once they are inside you, there is no removing them. You do not dream. You prepare. Even in sleep, your hands rest near your sword. Adolescence. Silence in the shadow of steel at 13, your father allows you to touch a real blade. It is not decorative. It is not ornate. It is oiled, cold, and perfect. You bow before it as if it were a shrine, because in many ways it is. A samurai's soul lives in his sword. That is what they tell you, not his heart, not his mind, but his sword. From that moment, your entire being is devoted to earning the right to carry one in public. You must learn to draw and cut in one motion. You must learn to strike without emotion. You must never, ever draw without cause. The key. Sword is not for protection, it is for precision, execution, obligation. You polish it every morning. You clean it with rice paper. You whisper your future into it, but you never name it aloud. That would be ego, and ego is shameful. Manhood. Obedience. Above life by 16, you are summoned before your daimyo, your feudal lord. He is not your father, but he is more important than your father. You kneel until your legs lose feeling. You speak only when spoken to. You do not look him in the eye. He gives you a task, a delivery, an escort, or perhaps a quiet elimination. You nod, you bow, you accept. You do not ask why. This is not war, this is service. And in service there are no questions, only obedience. If he tells you to burn a village, you do. If he tells you to kneel and wait for your death, you do. This is not mindless loyalty. It is survival, because a samurai without a master is no longer a man. He is a ronin, and there is no life worse than that. Battle, the cold fire of purpose. When war comes, it is not like the stories. There are no duels under moonlight. There are no long speeches or last-minute saves. There is mud, there is screaming, there is the sound of armor cracking, of blades slicing through tendon and bone. You do not flinch. You fight as trained. You advance with your unit. You swing when told. You cut quickly, cleanly. You see a boy not much older than yourself clutch his stomach, his blood steaming in the cold air. You do not stop. You do not cry. You return home and wash the blade. You bow to your ancestors. You sleep lightly. War is not horror. It is obligation. That is what makes it tolerable. Seppuku, death in dignity. There may come a day when your loyalty is questioned. Perhaps your daimyo has fallen out of favor. Perhaps your name is tied to a failed negotiation. Perhaps you failed in some invisible way you will never fully understand. You are not jailed. You are not punished. You are given a room, a white robe, a short blade. You are told, prepare. This is seppuku, ritual suicide. You eat a final meal. You compose a poem. A death poem, elegant and clear. You do not speak of regrets. You do not ask forgiveness. You kneel. You place the blade at your abdomen. You cut left, then right. Your second, your kaishakunin, stands behind you. If you falter, he will end your suffering with a single stroke to your neck. It is not fear that fills the room. It is peace. You are completing your duty. You are choosing dignity over disgrace, and in this you are free. Legacy, a name whispered in silence. When you are gone, you are not buried. You are cremated, your ashes placed beneath a stone. A wooden tablet carved with your name sits in the family altar. You are remembered, but not discussed. There is no weeping, only bowing. Your sons learn the same code. Your daughters light incense before your name. You were not a man who laughed loudly, or dreamed, or sought comfort. But you were obedient, precise, the harsh life of the ronin, masterless and forgotten. You were once a man of order, of bows and blades, of certainty, but one morning your master is gone. His castle stands silent, his retainers scatter like birds from a broken tree. He was executed, or defeated, or perhaps he took his own life to avoid dishonor. You are not told why. You are simply informed. You are no longer needed. You are now a ronin, a samurai with no master, a man without a place, a shadow among men who bow to no one, but for reasons not noble, only forgotten. You wouldn't last a day like this, not for lack of skill, but because being masterless in feudal Japan is worse than death. A name with no weight. Once, when you walked down the road in armor, villagers bowed. Children watched from doorways, admiring your rigid gait, your sharpened silhouette. But now, they do not bow, they do not smile. They look away. They close doors. Your sword is still on your hip, your hair still tied high, your footsteps still careful, but your name means nothing. You are not samurai, you are not merchant. You are not peasant, you are in between. You are Ronin, and that is an uncomfortable thing in a society that fears imbalance more than chaos. Losing the right to obey. You once lived by orders. Rise at dawn. Guard the gate. Escort this noble. Punish that thief. Each action had purpose, each breath was duty, but now no one commands you, no one watches your posture, no one corrects your form. You wake when you choose. Or when the rain stops dripping through the roof, you walk where you like, or where you're not chased away. At first it feels like freedom, but it's not, because a samurai was never trained to command himself, only to serve. And now that you no longer serve, you don't quite know what to do with your hands. Employment, the humiliating hunt. You try to find work. Some lords are hiring, at least their lower officers are. You present your credentials. You kneel properly. You offer your blade both physically and symbolically. But you are not accepted. You are not trusted. A masterless samurai is assumed to be broken. If your former lord could not keep you, then surely something is wrong with you. You are offered lesser tasks. Guard a warehouse. Deliver sake. Escort a merchant's wife to the market. You accept these things. You smile through clenched teeth. You still polish your sword each morning. Not because you expect to use it, but because you hope someone notices the care. They do. Not you begin carrying it less, not because you no longer respect it, but because it brings attention, the wrong kind. Hunger. The quiet enemy. Your stipend is gone. Your rice allotment? Gone. The silks you wore beneath your armor now hang like tired flags on your wall. You pawn your inkstone. You sell your second sword. You barter calligraphy for bowls of stew. There are nights when you chew roasted millet slowly, trying to trick your body into thinking it's more than it is. You grow thin. Your nails darken. Your hair loses its shine. Pride prevents you from stealing. Honor prevents you from begging, but neither prevents you from starving. There are Ronin who become thieves, some become mercenaries, a few become monsters. You are not there. Not yet, but you are closer than you would ever admit aloud. Companionship in exile, you are not the only one. In back alleys and under crumbling eaves, you find others like you. Men who once guarded castles, men who once led platoons into battle, men who once sipped tea beside nobles. Now they play dice with dirty coins. Now they trade war stories for soup. Now they sleep in silence, each man facing away from the other. There is no camaraderie among Ronin, only shared stillness. Each man sees in the other what he hates in himself: failure, rootlessness, uselessness. You share meals sometimes, but not dreams, because your dreams, like your master, are long gone. Shame and shadows. A samurai lives for duty. Without duty, there is only shame. And shame in feudal Japan is not a feeling. It is a fact. You feel it when you pass a gate you once guarded. You feel it when your nephew bows lower than necessary, trying not to meet your eyes. You feel it when you walk past a shrine and hesitate to pray, not because the gods are cruel, but because you no longer feel worthy of their silence. Sometimes you think of seppuku, but to die with honor, one must have something left to protect. You do not, and so you live, which may be worse. Wandering without purpose, You travel, sometimes, from one province to another, looking for work, looking for a cause. The roads are dangerous, bandits roam freely, villagers are suspicious. You are sometimes mistaken for a bandit yourself, or a spy, or worse, a fraud. You try to stay quiet. You offer help when needed. You sleep where straw is dry and feet are not likely to trample you by morning. You are polite to everyone because you have nothing left to trade except your manners, reinvention or disappearance. Some Ronin adapt. They become teachers, poets, priests. They lay down their swords and lift pens, or prayer beads, or farming tools, but it is never a perfect fit. You cannot forget how to measure a man's distance by how he walks. You cannot stop listening for footsteps behind you. You cannot unlearn the weight of duty. The sword remains part of you, even if buried deep, so most Ronin do not reinvent. They simply vanish. Their names disappear from scrolls. Their stories are forgotten. Their graves are unmarked, not because they were unworthy, but because there was no one left to remember them. The quiet end. Your hair grows long. Your posture curves. Your hands stiffen. You are no longer feared, no longer useful, no longer young. One day you do not wake to polish your sword. You do not sharpen your calligraphy brush. You do not go to the market for rice. You simply sit beneath a pine tree, staring at the mountains you once crossed as a proud soldier. The wind blows gently. You close your eyes. You do not wonder if you were a good man. You do not wonder if you served well. You wonder what became of the world while you stood still, and then, softly, like a blade returned to its sheath. You fade. Life in a feudal Japanese village, the peasant's burden. The rooster does not ask you if you're ready. It simply crows. A sharp cry splitting the damp morning air. Your eyes open in the dark. There is no fire in the hearth, only cold ash and the distant creak of wood stretching in the wind. You rise not because you are rested, but because the rice will not plant itself. And because your father's shadow watches even from the grave. You are a peasant in feudal Japan, a hyakusho, not noble, not warrior, not poor enough to beg, but never rich enough to breathe easy. And no, you wouldn't last a day here. Because peace is a lie told by people who do not till the land. The world within 100 steps. Your world does not stretch beyond the fields. Not really. You were born in a house of packed earth, straw thatch and wooden beams that groan each winter. You eat from the same bowls your mother ate from. You sit beside the same fire your grandfather built with his hands. You rarely travel, not because you're afraid, but because there is no reason to. The tax collector finds you regardless. And the rice doesn't care where you go. Every morning you walk barefoot to the edge of your paddy, feeling the mud squeeze between your toes. You inspect the growth. You curse the crows. Then you begin again. You know every step between your home and the shrine. Every stone, every bend in the path. It is a small life, but not a quiet one. The seasons command. You are not ruled by a shogun. Not really. You are ruled by the seasons. Spring is for planting, summer is for weeding, autumn is for harvesting, winter is for worrying. If the rains come too soon, your crops drown. If the sun is too hot, your rice wilts. There are no days. Off only days when your fingers hurt more than usual. Festivals, yes, a few. You wear the one kimono without holes. You dance poorly and eat mochi until your stomach protests. But the next day, the paddy is waiting. Always waiting. Your calendar is not measured in weeks or months, but in how tall the rice is. Taxes. The hunger with a name. You grow rice, but you do not eat most of it. You tie the sheaves with care. You dry them under the sun. Then you stack them on your back and carry them to the edge of the village. There, a man in a fine robe counts them, not with his fingers but with disdain. You bow deeply. You do not speak unless spoken to. He takes half, sometimes more. This is your tax. For protection, he says, but the only men you see with swords are the ones who come to take your rice. Sometimes you are allowed to keep a little millet, some barley, if the season was kind. If not, you eat weeds, you chew on bark. You do not complain, because complaining does not lower the tax. Family as labor force. Your children are not hobbies, they are tools. The moment they can walk, they are carrying water. The moment they can grasp, they are pulling weeds. Your wife rises earlier than you do, often asleep before she finishes cooking. She cuts the firewood. She mends the clothes, she watches for sickness. You love your family, but love is a quiet thing here. A bowl of warm soup, a calloused hand held briefly after sunset. You do not kiss your children goodnight. You do not read them stories. You teach them how to spot a snake in the grass, how to avoid the Lord's road unless summoned. You teach them how to survive, because you're not sure you will always be there to do it for them. Disease, the silent killer. You know the signs before the fever rises, the chill that won't go away, the dull eyes, the cough that rattles like broken sticks. There is no doctor. Only an old woman who knows herbs, prayers, and where to place her hands. Sometimes she helps, sometimes she simply watches someone die. Slowly. You do not fear death, but you fear dying too soon, because no one tills the paddy when you are gone. No one feeds the children when you cannot rise. You have buried too many neighbors. Too many friends. Sometimes in the spring you see the mist cling low to the ground and wonder if the sickness rides on it. You offer rice to the shrine, not to ask for health, but to ask that if death comes, it does so after the harvest. Fire and water. The rain is a gift until it isn't. Sometimes it pours too long and the river floods your fields, washes away your hard work. Other times it doesn't come at all and the ground cracks like old leather. You dig irrigation ditches. You say the right prayers, but the weather does not listen, and fire is your enemy in every season. One careless ember and your house becomes a memory. The thatch roof goes up in seconds. The neighbors rush with buckets, but if the wind is strong, nothing stops it. You keep a fire watch during dry seasons. Take turns sleeping, because one spark means starting over, and you don't know if you have the strength to start over again. The Lord you never meet, you live under his rule, but you've never seen him. The daimyo lives far away, behind lacquered doors and paper walls. His messengers wear crests you're told to respect. He controls your rice, your land, your life, and yet he does not know your name. Still, you bow when his men ride by. You lower your eyes, because to be seen is to be remembered. And to be remembered might mean being taken for service, or punishment, or amusement. You do not want to be remembered. Obscurity is safer than favor. A day in your feet. You wake at dawn. Pull water from the well. Soak the millet. Feed the chickens. You walk to the fields, the mud squelching beneath you. You bend, pull, bend again. Your back burns by midday. Your palms blister. You do not stop. At sunset you rinse your legs in the stream, eat a bowl of broth, repair a sandal, brush ash from the floor. You sit in silence, not because you have nothing to say, but because the words are too tired to rise. You sleep on straw, dream of rain that comes at just the right time, dream of a season with no tax, dream of waking up without pain in your knees. Then the rooster crows again. Rituals of stillness. Despite the hardship, there is beauty, not grand beauty, but the kind that passes unnoticed if you blink. The way steam curls from a tea bowl. The silence before snow falls, the hush of the village shrine at dusk. You learn to sweep the doorway slowly, not because the dirt will stay away, but because the act itself brings peace. You light incense, even when there's little to offer. You bow to the ancestors, not out of fear, but because they suffered too, and because remembering them makes your own suffering feel like part of something older, something survivable. Would you last a day? No silk, no sword, no glory, only earth and rice and wind. Would you last a day here? Would your fingers, used to keyboards or clean air, handle the rot of compost and blisters? Would you eat the same bowl of millet every morning and still rise with gratitude? Would you bow when a tax collector took what little you had and say, "Thank you, you wouldn't last," not because you're weak, but because your life was never measured in seasons, in hands, in silence? But here, in this village, it is. And somehow, even in the cold, wet mud of uncertainty, they endure. Inside the samurai's world, discipline, honor, and death. You think you know the samurai, the noble warrior in lacquered armor, sword at his side, eyes like stone. You've seen the movies, the duels, the cherry blossoms, the perfect bows. But the truth, it is quieter, stricter, harder. The life of a samurai wasn't just war. It was watching, waiting, obeying, and you, soft and used to comfort, you wouldn't last a day. Born into the sword, you are not trained to be a samurai. You are born to be one. Your name means nothing if your family has no standing, no land, no vassalage. You begin training before your teeth are fully grown. Your father places a wooden sword in your hands. It is heavy. It hurts when it strikes. You learn to accept pain. By 7, you rise before dawn. You clean your blade, even if it's never touched flesh. You bow before your ancestors. You recite the rei, rituals of respect. You do not ask why. A samurai who questions is a danger to his daimyo, and a samurai without a master. is nothing. Armor is not for comfort. Forget the sleek, romantic image. Your armor is hot, cumbersome, layered with iron scales and lacquered leather, tied with cords that itch in the rain. Each piece has meaning. Each must be bound in order. Wrong sequence, dishonor. You polish your kabuto helmet every week, even when there's no battle, because rust is weakness, and weakness is shame. When you wear it, your movement changes. You cannot run freely. You cannot sit comfortably, but you must stand tall and never flinch even when your shoulders scream for rest. The way of the sword is the way of death. You learn kenjutsu, the sword art, but not just how to swing. You learn how to die. Every stroke is practiced as if it is your last, because it could be. You train with bamboo blades, then with dull steel, then with sharp ones. You spar with brothers, cousins, retainers. You bleed often. Each scar becomes part of you, but none should be on your back, because you must never turn away. To flee is to die without honor. And for a samurai, honor is everything. A life of obedience. You belong to your lord, your thoughts, your time, your blade. When he commands, you move. When he is silent, you wait. He may ask for taxes, or your presence at court, or your death, and you must answer yes to all three. There is no negotiation, no rebellion, only the duty of the vassal to the master. If your daimyo falls from favor, you fall with him. If he commits seppuku, you may be expected to follow, because your life is not yours. Not really. Ritual and precision, every gesture is studied. Your bow must be exact, not too deep, not too shallow. Your handwriting must be perfect, your calligraphy as sharp as your sword. You are trained in poetry, in the Go board game, in tea ceremony, because beauty is part of war. Order is part of control. You must know when to kill, and when to compose a verse about the moon. You must know when to raise your blade, and when to sit in stillness for hours, unmoving. To be a samurai is to be a paradox, a violent monk, a quiet storm, the silence between wars. You imagine constant battles, but the truth, war is rare. Much of your time is spent waiting, guarding the gate, walking the estate, training in silence. Sometimes years pass without a single fight. You begin to wonder if the edge of your blade will ever taste blood, but you train anyway, because the moment you stop is the moment death chooses you. The blade must stay sharp, even if only in your mind. Punishment and shame. There is no greater shame than cowardice, than failure. If you disobey, you are punished. If you fail your mission, you are punished. If you speak out of turn, show disrespect, tarnish your name, you are expected to atone with blood. Sometimes a whipping, sometimes exile, sometimes seppuku, ritual suicide, not done in private, but in front of witnesses. You kneel, you speak your final poem, then drive the blade into your stomach. Slowly, deliberately, your second, Kaishakunin, stands ready. He must decapitate you at the perfect moment. Too soon. Dishonor. Too late. Agony. You do not cry out, because that would shame your family, and in your final breath, you still obey. Brotherhood and solitude. You serve in groups, but you live alone. Your brothers in arms may die tomorrow. so you do not grow too close. You may drink together, you may train, but you do not confess weakness. A samurai's heart is a fortress. Its gates never open. Even in love you must restrain. Too much affection is dangerous. It weakens the blade. And yet, some nights, you wonder what it would be like to live without. Armor, to weep, to rest. But then the sun rises and the moment passes. The sword never sleeps. You sleep near your weapon. Always, even in peace. Even in the mountains, you rise to any sound, the chirp of a night bird. Your hand goes to the hilt, the wind knocks a shutter. You check the courtyard, because a samurai must be ready, always. Death does not knock, it bursts in, and if you are not prepared, you dishonor yourself forever. Even in sleep you guard your name. Could you endure? You imagine being a samurai as glory, honor, power. But can you kneel for hours in silence? Can you obey a man who sees you only as a tool? Can you die at his word? Can you kill when told, even if it breaks your soul? Can you dress in layers of armor in the sweltering heat, bow perfectly, train until your arms shake, and still rise at dawn for more? You think it's cinematic. It is not. It is controlled pain, measured duty, sacrifice. You wouldn't last a day, not because you aren't brave, but because you are free, and a samurai is never truly free. The lonely path of the Ronin. The word Ronin once meant waveman, a person without anchor, without mooring, a man adrift, a samurai without a lord, no purpose, no duty, no home. Some were born into it. Most became Ronin through disgrace, through war, through failure. You imagine freedom. But the truth, it is cold, hard, unforgiving, because in feudal Japan, to have no master was to have no honor. And in a world ruled by honor, that made you nothing. The fall from grace, it begins with the death of a lord, maybe through battle, maybe betrayal. You survive, but that is not always a mercy. You bow before his grave. Swear to avenge him if allowed, but the new shogun forbids it. You're expected to move on, but you cannot serve another, not right away. That would look disloyal, so you wait. And while you wait, you become Ronin, not by choice, but by force. And suddenly the doors close, the stipends vanish, the servants disappear. You are alone. Life without a castle. You no longer sleep behind stone walls. You sleep under eaves or in poor inns or in the woods. You once dined with porcelain. Now you beg rice from farmers who look at you with fear or pity. They know what you are. Masterless, unanchored. They whisper when you walk past. You try to keep your kimono clean, but it frays at the edges. The color fades. You try to keep your sword sharp, but it's harder without a servant, without oil, without firewood. Your blade rusts. So does your name. The hunger and the job offers. There are offers, always offers. You can guard merchants on dangerous roads. You can work as a debt enforcer. Sometimes people will pay you to kill, and you say no. At first, you are still a samurai in your heart, but the nights grow colder, the hunger sharper. Eventually you accept one job, then another. Each time you tell yourself, this isn't what I've become. but it is. You are no longer a warrior of honor, you are a blade for rent. And once you start, the path becomes hard to leave. The new code Bushido is for the samurai. You are no longer one. Not truly. You must make your own rules. Don't steal from the poor. Unless you're starving, don't kill for coin. Unless they offer enough. Don't cry, don't remember. Forget your family. Forget your master's smile. Forget the temple prayers. You live by silence now, and motion and survival. There is no scroll for that. Only scars. Hunted and feared Ronin are not trusted. You are watched when you enter villages, sometimes barred at the gates. You are blamed for thefts you didn't commit. You are expected to bow lower, speak less, leave sooner. You wear your sword still, both of them. But they mean something different now. To the world, they are warnings. Symbols of danger, not of dignity. You are often chased, often lied to. Rarely welcomed. Even peasants with less food than you look down at you from their muddy porches. You try to serve. Again, sometimes, a lord might offer you a second chance, a low position, a minor guard duty, a temporary post. You take it. You polish your armor. You bow deeply, you speak humbly, and for a few weeks you remember what it felt like to belong. But someone always remembers the old disgrace, the rumors, the blood, and they whisper in the court, and you are dismissed, not for what you did, but for what you are, a reminder that the world is built on loyalty, and you lost yours. The drink, the dust, the sword years pass. You drink more now. It helps. Dull the shame and the memory. Your sword grows lighter in your hand. Not because it's sharper, but because you are older and thinner. You have nightmares about the battle you fled, or the lord you couldn't save, or the child you killed for coin. You try not to sleep. You wander mountain paths, hoping bandits will test you. Sometimes they do. You always win, but each time you wish you didn't. The duel you didn't want. One day, a young samurai steps in front of you. His armor is new. His face is proud. His hand rests on his katana. He insults you, says you're a disgrace, a stain on the warrior class. He draws. You try to walk away. He slashes your sleeve. You cannot walk away now. You cut him down, fast, clean, and suddenly the crowd that watched turns away in disgust. You defended yourself, but in their eyes, you killed hope. You were a mirror of what he feared to become, and you shattered it. The memory of the master, some nights, you remember his voice, the way he corrected your grip, the calligraphy scrolls he studied, the way he placed incense at his altar. You remember when he praised you, when you earned your first real armor, when you stood beside him in court. He is long dead, but in your heart you still serve. You still wear your hair as he required, still polish your sword as he taught, and when you kneel to sleep, you still offer your breath to his spirit, because even Ronin, even ghosts, need a master to dream of. The end you never wanted, you grow slower, more brittle. One day your foot slips on a river stone. Your leg won't stop shaking. You know your time is close. You write a final verse. No one will read it. You clean your blade one last time. You do not seek seppuku, That is for those who still have honor. You simply walk into the woods and disappear. Your bones will not be found. Your name will not be remembered, but somewhere a tree will grow where you knelt, and the wind that passes through its branches will carry your silence. You would not last a day as a ronin, not because of the hunger, not because of the danger, but because you would remember what you once were, and that would break you. The outcasts beneath the empire, life as an eta in feudal Japan. In the Grand Pyramid of feudal Japan, the emperor stood at the top. Below him, the shogun. Then the daimyo, the samurai, the farmers, the artisans, and the merchants. And below them, au-delà, beneath even recognition, was a group not even considered part of society. They were the ETA, literally polluted people. Men, women, and children born into a status lower than dirt. They skinned the animals. They buried the bodies. They cleaned the blood. They handled death so others could live without touching it. You wouldn't last a day in their world, not because of the work, but because of the shame and the silence that followed them everywhere. A life without a name. You are born into filth, not because your house is dirty, though it is, but because of what you are. You are ETA. You can never change this. Your father skins horses. Your mother washes the robes of dead samurai. You are marked before your first breath. No amount of prayer, no amount of loyalty, no service to the empire will ever let you escape your label. You live in the outskirts, always the outskirts. Your village is not on official maps. When you walk into town, people cross the road. Even other peasants look away. You are not of society. You are beneath it, the work no one else will do. Your family cleans blood from execution sites, from battlefields, from riverbanks where bodies wash up. You skin dogs for leather. You remove infected teeth. You bury plague victims no one dares to touch. You don't complain, because this is the work that feeds you, that lets you breathe. Your hands are never clean. The smell never leaves, not after 10 scrubbings, not after prayers, not even in dreams. Children call you ghost fingers. They say spirits follow your shadow. Maybe they do. A day in the life you wake before the sun. Because work begins when others still sleep. You collect carcasses, cows, horses, even deer killed in the daimyo's hunt. You slice, skin clean, dry, tan. Flies circle you. The meat is thick with rot. Your knife is dull. Later you wash the soiled cloth of the dead. You press their garments flat, then burn them. A priest may come chanting from a distance. He will not approach. Even the holy fear your touch. In the evening you return home to a thatched shack. No shrine inside. Only wood smoke. Only silence. Your children do not complain. They've never known another life. No school, no future ETA children are not allowed in the village school, even if they could afford it. You teach your child how to strip sinew, how to clean bone, how to sew leather. No reading, no brushwork, no samurai stories. You know they dream of another life. Maybe as a monk or a farmer, but they cannot escape, not by marriage, not by money, not by loyalty. Once ETA, always ETA, and yet they laugh, they play, their joy is stubborn, like weeds between stones. The silence of others. When you enter town, to sell your leather, the guards do not speak. They simply nod you to the back gate. You walk around the market stalls, not through them. Your products are bought, but not touched. Coins are tossed into your basket. You are not thanked. When you leave, people talk again. You are not seen. You are remembered only as a shadow, a breath of death on an otherwise pleasant day. You walk home slowly, past signs that say, "Etta, not welcome," as if you needed reminding, and this river of shame. Sometimes you walk to the riverbank where the other eater gather. You light a small fire. You sit together, close but not too close. No one speaks for a while. Then someone tells a story, a funny one, about a samurai who fell in mud. You laugh. For a moment, you feel human again. But even here, you notice the quiet glances, the judgment. Between ETA families, whose daughter took a job in the capital, whose son was seen talking to a townsman, even the lowest need someone to feel higher than. The unseen service. When plague comes, you are the ones who bury the dead. When war ends, you are the ones who burn the bodies. When a lord dies, you dig the grave, clean the shrine, dispose of the executioner's robes, and no one thanks you. They don't even see you, but the land remains clean because of your hands, and though no scroll records your name, the ancestors sleep peacefully because of your work. You are the invisible spine of an empire built on purity. You are its dirt and its foundation. The dreams you don't say aloud. You once dreamed of becoming a monk. You shaved your head in secret. You practiced bowing. You visited the temple. Once, you knelt for an hour. No one spoke to you. Later that week, the head priest came to your father, told him never to bring shame upon the temple again. You never returned. You still pray, though, sometimes in the woods, far from sight. You kneel in mud, whispering your dreams, to trees that will not judge you. Sometimes you dream of being reborn as something else, a bird, a stone, even a peasant, anything but this. The path to disappearance. As you age, your back bends, your breath grows shallow. No doctor visits, no herb woman comes. You know your time is near when the world grows quiet. You give your knife to your son, your leather to your daughter. You walk to the old shrine hidden behind the bamboo grove. You place 3 coins there, and your name, written on paper, folded into ash. No one will sing for you, no lantern will float in your name, but your work remains, your bones. The harsh codes of Bushido. Why samurai discipline was a life sentence. Imagine waking every morning to a world where your entire existence is ruled by a code so strict that failure means more than just death in battle. It means death by your own hand, disgrace that shatters your family's name, and eternal dishonor that brands you forever. This was the reality for the samurai, the elite warriors of feudal Japan, whose lives were bound by the unyielding principles of Bushido, the way of the warrior. Bushido was not merely a set of rules, but a philosophy, an all-consuming way of life that dictated every thought, every action, every breath. To live by Bushido was to live under constant pressure, where honor was the currency of existence, and one wrong step could mean an irreversible fall from grace. You wouldn't last a day living under such relentless demands. And today, I will guide you through the harsh realities behind the romanticized image of the samurai, revealing why their discipline was, in many ways, a life sentence. Origins of Bushido. More than just a code to understand the severity of the samurai's life, we must first explore the origins of Bushido. It was an evolving philosophy, forged over centuries, influenced by a fusion of Zen Buddhism, Confucian ethics, and Shinto beliefs. Each pillar added layers to the warrior's code. Loyalty, chugi. Absolute allegiance to one's lord. Courage, jiyu. Fearlessness in the face of death. Benevolence, jin. Compassion towards others. Respect, rei. Politeness and humility. Honesty, makoto. Truthfulness in all dealings. Honor, meiyo. Upholding one's reputation. Self-control, jisei, mastery over one's emotions. These ideals weren't suggestions. They were demands that shaped social order and individual identity. Samurai were expected to internalize them, embodying each in every moment of their lives. The rise of Bushido coincided with turbulent times, the Sengoku period of near-constant warfare, where the need for discipline and loyalty was paramount. Yet it was also shaped in times of peace, when the sword was sheathed, but the code remained an unbreakable prison. Loyalty, the iron chain. Loyalty was the heart of Bushido, and perhaps its most brutal demand. Samurai owed absolute obedience to their daimyo, their feudal lord. This loyalty was so fierce that it often trumped family ties, personal beliefs, or even survival instincts. Imagine being ordered to fight to the death for a cause you might not believe in, or to execute a close friend who has fallen out of favor with your lord. Disobedience wasn't just rebellion, it was betrayal and punishable by death. This unyielding loyalty was a double-edged sword. It ensured stability in the chaotic world of feudal Japan, but it also trapped samurai in a cage of duty, forcing them to suppress personal desires and moral doubts. They were bound by honor to serve, even if that service led to their destruction. Courage and the fear of shame. Courage in Bushido extended far beyond physical bravery. It encompassed the courage to face social disgrace, personal failure, and inner demons. Samurai were expected to confront death daily, both on and off the battlefield, but the greater fear was shame, a stain on one's honor that could haunt not only the samurai, but their entire lineage. Shame was a shadow looming over every action, a constant pressure to maintain an impeccable facade. Displaying fear, sadness, or weakness was unforgivable. The samurai were warriors of iron will, trained to suppress emotion and present a stoic exterior at all times. Failure to do so meant loss of honor and social death, sometimes worse than the actual death of the body. Benevolence and justice, the weight of mercy. Paradoxically, Bushido demanded compassion. Samurai were not merely killers, but protectors of the weak and enforcers of justice. This benevolence was integral, requiring warriors to temper their strength with mercy. However, this mercy was limited. It was extended to common people and allies, but not to enemies or traitors. Samurai had to balance ruthless efficiency with acts of kindness, a mental tightrope walk that tested their discipline daily. Their actions were governed by complex judgments of justice, honor, and loyalty, often forcing painful decisions that weighed heavily on their conscience. Respect and politeness, the mask of discipline. The samurai world was governed by strict etiquette. Every movement, every word, every gesture carried weight. From bowing correctly to handling a tea ceremony, social interactions were ritualized performances designed to demonstrate discipline and respect. Even small mistakes could cause offense, leading to social disgrace. Samurai spent years mastering these customs, learning to mask inner turmoil behind serene politeness. This constant performance added another layer of pressure to their already demanding lives, leaving little space for genuine emotion. Honesty, brutal truths, and paradoxes. Honesty in Bushido meant brutal frankness. Honesty with oneself and others was a virtue. Yet the realities of warfare and politics demanded deception and cunning. This paradox created an internal conflict. Samurai were expected to be truthful, but also to engage in strategic lies when necessary. This delicate balance required constant self-discipline and mental agility. Self-control. The unending battle. Within, above all, samurai were expected to master themselves. Self-control was the foundation that held Bushido together. Controlling. Emotions, fear, anger, desire, grief was not a choice but an obligation. Samurai had to live as if every emotion was a potential weakness to be crushed. Imagine never allowing yourself to cry for a lost friend, never showing happiness, and always maintaining a calm exterior, no matter the storm inside. This internal battle was relentless, a quiet torment that few could escape. Seppuku, death as redemption. The ultimate expression of Bushido was seppuku, ritual suicide by disembowelment. It was not a sign of weakness, but an act of courage, dignity, and repentance. When a samurai failed in his duties or faced disgrace, seppuku was expected. It was a way to restore honor to one's family and avoid the shame of capture or execution by enemies. Preparing for seppuku involved solemn rituals, writing a death poem, dressing in white robes, and having a trusted second, kaishakunin, to end the suffering swiftly. Yet this practice created a constant psychological weight. The threat of having to perform this final act hung over samurai, like a sword suspended by a single thread. The reality. The breaking point. Despite their training and discipline, many samurai reached breaking points. The mental strain of living, up to impossible standards, led to hidden despair. Behind the mask of honor, many suffered from depression, anxiety, and loneliness. The relentless pressure to never fail, never show weakness, took a toll on their health and spirit. Some chose escape in alcohol, others in violence, and many in tragic suicides. Legacy of Bushido. Beyond the samurai, though the samurai class was officially abolished in the 19th century, the spirit of Bushido survived. Its values permeated Japanese culture, influencing business ethics, education, and social conduct. Yet, for the samurai themselves, it had life on the edge, the brutal reality of peasant life under samurai rule. When we think of feudal Japan, images of fierce samurai warriors, gleaming swords, and honorable battles often come to mind. The samurai are portrayed as noble, disciplined, and invincible figures, the very heart of Japan's historic identity. But these warriors did not live in isolation. Their power and prestige rested heavily upon the backs of the peasant class, who made up the vast majority of the population. These were farmers, laborers, artisans, and villagers who worked relentlessly, often under conditions so harsh and unforgiving that surviving each day was a battle in itself. Imagine waking every day before the sun rises, not to train with a sword or serve a lord, but to spend hours bent over muddy rice paddies, battling insects, drought, and hunger, all while knowing that much of what you grow will be taken from you as tax. Imagine a life where famine is a constant threat, illness is a frequent visitor, and the whims of your local lord can turn your existence upside down at any moment. The life of a peasant under the samurai rule was a relentless struggle for survival, marked by poverty, social restrictions, and the ever-present shadow of violence. Today, we leave behind the romanticized world of the warrior elite to explore the gritty, painful reality of those who lived beneath them, a reality so unforgiving you truly wouldn't last a day. The feudal pyramid. Life at the bottom of the ladder. Feudal Japan was structured like a pyramid. At the very top sat the emperor, whose power was mostly symbolic. Below him were the shogun, the military dictators who wielded real authority, followed by powerful daimyo, regional lords who controlled large swathes of land, and armies of samurai. The samurai themselves stood next, the military nobility, trained from childhood to be warriors and administrators. But below these warrior classes were the peasants, a vast mass of people who produced the food, built the infrastructure, and maintained the villages that made society function. Though officially they were respected as the backbone of Japan, responsible for the essential task of feeding the country, their social status was low. They were confined to their roles with little hope for upward mobility. The peasant population was mainly composed of farmers, fishermen, artisans, and laborers. Farmers were by far the largest group, responsible for growing rice, Japan's staple food and economic backbone. Peasant farmers typically worked small plots of land, often owned by a daimyo or local lord. In many cases, the peasants did not own the land themselves, but were tenants or serfs, obligated to give a significant portion of their harvest as tax. Life at the bottom of this pyramid was defined by hardship. The peasants' toil filled the days larders of the elite, yet they themselves subsisted on barely enough to survive. Their daily lives were ruled by the cycles of nature, seasons of planting and harvesting, and the constant threat of natural disasters that could wipe out entire harvests. The crushing tax burden, rice as currency and control in feudal Japan. Rice was far more than a staple food. It was the foundation of the economy and the currency of power. The amount of rice one controlled was a measure of wealth and influence. This system was known as koku, with one koku representing roughly enough rice to feed one person for a year. For peasants, rice was both a lifeline and a chain. The taxes they owed, often as much as 40 to 50% of their crop, were paid to their daimyo or samurai overlords. This meant that even in years when the harvest was good, families were left with barely enough rice to feed themselves. During bad years, when drought, floods or pests ruined crops, the situation became dire. The tax quotas did not adjust. For hardship, failure to deliver the expected amount could result in harsh punishment, including land confiscation, forced labor, imprisonment, or even death. This relentless extraction of resources created a cycle of poverty and desperation. Peasants were trapped, caught between the demands of their lords and the unforgiving forces of nature. A day in the life. The backbreaking routine of a peasant. From the first light of dawn until after sunset, peasants labored tirelessly. Their days were filled with hard physical work, repeated endlessly throughout the seasons. In the rice paddies, men and women worked side by side, planting seedlings by hand in flooded fields. The work was exhausting, requiring squatting in cold water for hours, battling muddy terrain and swarms of insects. In addition to farming, peasants repaired irrigation canals, built and maintained terraces on hillsides, and gathered firewood. Women carried water, cooked simple meals, and cared for children, while also helping in the fields when needed. Meals were modest and repetitive. The diet consisted mostly of plain rice, with small amounts of vegetables, soybeans, and occasionally fish or pickled foods. Meat was scarce and often forbidden for peasants, viewed as a luxury reserved for the elite. Health conditions were poor. Malnutrition, parasites, and diseases like tuberculosis and cholera were common. Medical knowledge was limited, and access to health care was virtually non-existent for most peasants. Life expectancy was low. Many did not survive past their 40s or 50s. Infant mortality was high, and many families lost children to disease and starvation. Social restrictions and control, bound by class and duty, peasants lived under strict social rules that severely limited their freedom. They were tied to their land and village, rarely allowed to leave without permission from their local lord. Marriage was controlled by family and community elders, often arranged to maintain land and social ties. Education was minimal and usually focused on practical knowledge for farming or craft skills, rather than literacy or philosophy. Peasants were expected to show deference and obedience to the samurai who governed them. Any signs of disrespect or rebellion were met with swift punishment. Even religious practices were monitored. Temples and shrines were controlled by the ruling classes, who used them as tools for social control, preaching obedience and discouraging dissent. Religion and culture, moments of solace amid struggle. Despite the hardships, peasants found comfort and community through religion and cultural traditions. Shinto and Buddhism were deeply woven into daily life. Shrines dotted villages, serving as centers for worship, festivals, and social gatherings. Seasonal festivals were highlights in the peasant calendar, times when labor paused, communities came together, and the harshness of life momentarily faded. These celebrations often involved offerings to deities and spirits, rituals to ensure good harvests, and shared meals and dances. Yet even these moments were tinged with anxiety, as peasants sought to appease forces they believed controlled their fates, spirits of the land, ancestors, and natural phenomena. Revolts and resistance, the limits of endurance. Although peasants were generally powerless, history records moments when they rose up against oppression. The Iko-Iki uprisings in the 15th and 16th centuries were among the most famous, where Buddhist monks allied with peasants to challenge samurai rule and seek religious and social autonomy. Other local rebellions, often sparked by famine or excessive taxation, were brutally suppressed by samurai forces. These revolts highlight the simmering tension beneath the surface and the peasants' desperate desire for relief from unbearable conditions. Survival strategies, adaptation and resilience. Faced with constant hardship, peasants developed ways to adapt and survive. Communal labor was common. Villagers worked together to build irrigation, share tools, and protect crops. Crop rotation and diversification helped reduce the risk of total failure. Some peasants took on additional work as craftsmen, merchants, or day laborers to supplement their meager incomes. Sharing food and resources within families and villages was essential for survival during lean times. The psychological toll, living under constant pressure, the relentless grind of poverty, hunger and social subjugation took a deep psychological toll. Peasants lived with chronic anxiety, fearing famine, disease, violent punishment, or displacement. The presence of samurai warriors was a daily reminder of their vulnerability, as any failure to meet obligations could result in brutal repercussions. Despite this, many maintained a strong sense of community and family, finding meaning in tradition and faith. Legacy, the unsung backbone of feudal Japan. Though their stories are rarely told in history books or popular media, peasants were the foundation of Japan's feudal society. Their labor fed the country. Their resilience upheld the social order, and their culture preserved traditions that survive to this day. Understanding their harsh reality helps us see feudal Japan beyond the romantic samurai tales. The harsh world of feudal Japanese women, life, duty, and survival. In feudal Japan, women's lives were shaped by strict social codes and rigid expectations. While the samurai men are often the center of historical attention, the women behind The scenes, wives, mothers, daughters, and laborers, endured a life of duty and hardship that demanded strength and resilience. Unlike the romanticized images of warrior women or noble ladies, the everyday reality for most women was far more challenging. They managed households, bore children, worked alongside men in the fields, and were bound by social customs that limited their freedom. Today, we explore the life of the feudal Japanese woman, the sacrifices she made, the roles she played, and the ways she survived in a society built on hierarchy and tradition. Social position. The role assigned by birth women's social status in feudal Japan was determined largely by their family's rank and occupation. Samurai daughters married into other samurai families, expected to uphold honor and manage estates. Peasant women worked the land and tended the home. Merchant and artisan women ran businesses and managed trade in some cases. Yet across all classes, women were subject to Confucian ideals that emphasized obedience, chastity, and modesty. They were expected to obey their fathers, then husbands, and finally their sons. The concept of onna daigaku, the great learning for women, was a popular manual that taught women to be humble, diligent, and loyal. It was a code that shaped behavior and limited opportunity, daily life and labor, endless work. Without recognition, for most women, daily life was a cycle of exhausting work, both inside and outside the home. In peasant families, women worked alongside men in the fields, planting, weeding, and harvesting crops. They also collected firewood, prepared food, cared for children, and handled domestic chores. In samurai households, women were responsible for managing servants, overseeing food preparation, and ensuring the smooth running of the home. They also trained daughters in etiquette and skills suitable for marriage. Merchant women sometimes took charge of shopkeeping, accounting, and negotiations when their husbands were away. Despite their indispensable roles, women's labor was often invisible and undervalued. Marriage and family, bonds and burdens. Marriage was typically arranged, focused on political alliances or economic benefits rather than love. Women were expected to bear children, particularly sons, to continue family lines. Divorce was rare and difficult for women who could be abandoned or disinherited. Widows often faced social isolation, though some gained independence by managing estates or businesses. Within the family, women were caregivers, educators, and mediators, maintaining household harmony. Restrictions and challenges, limited freedom and harsh punishments. Women had limited rights under the law and social customs. They could not inherit land or hold political power. Disobedience could lead to punishment, including physical abuse or expulsion. Women were also vulnerable during wartime, facing displacement, violence, and exploitation. Religious life offered some refuge, with nuns and temple women finding roles outside traditional family structures. Education and culture, learning within boundaries. Education for women focused mainly on practical skills, sewing, cooking, child rearing, and moral instruction. Some, Noblewomen learned poetry, calligraphy, and music, contributing to cultural life. However, literacy rates among common women were low. Despite this, women preserved and transmitted traditions, folklore, and domestic arts. Religion and spiritual life, sources of strength Buddhism and Shintoism, influenced women's lives deeply. Religious festivals and rituals were opportunities for community and spiritual expression. Some women became priestesses or nuns, gaining status and independence. Faith offered comfort amid hardship and hope for protection and better futures. The role of samurai women, warrior and caregiver. Though rare, some women of samurai families trained in martial arts to defend their homes. The ideal was a balance of strength and grace, readiness for battle, but devotion to family. Historical figures like Toma Gozen became legendary for their bravery. Most samurai women, however, lived disciplined lives dedicated to managing households and raising heirs, health and mortality. The struggles of women's bodies. Childbearing was dangerous, with high rates of maternal mortality. Nutrition was often poor, especially during famine. Women's health was generally neglected, contributing to shorter lifespans. Yet many women displayed remarkable endurance, surviving against odds. Legacy and representation, women's stories in history. Women's voices are often missing from feudal histories, overshadowed by male-centric narratives. Recent scholarship aims to recover these stories, highlighting women's vital roles and struggles. Understanding women's lives gives a fuller picture of feudal Japan's social fabric.